Welcome to everyone for the core course 9 Shakespeare. I am Dr.R.Manimozhi, Assistant Professor of English, A.D.M.College for Women, Autonomous Nagapattinam. Next. Core course 9 Shakespeare is with 5 units. Unit 1 is about Macbeth. Unit 2, Julius Caesar. Unit 3, The Tempest. Unit 4, As You Like It. And Unit 5, about Shakespearean theatre and audience, Shakespearean fools and clowns, Shakespearean women, supernatural element in Shakespearean plays, Shakespearean soliloquies, Shakespearean as a sonneteer and a narrative poet. And this unit 1, module 1 is about introduction of drama and about the first play Macbeth. The term drama comes from a Greek word meaning action. Drama is a mode of fictional representation through dialogue and performance. Drama is a type of literature telling a story. It contains conflict of characters which is intended to be performed to the audience on the stage. Types of drama. There are 4 main forms of drama. They are comedy, tragedy, tragicomedy and melodrama. All these types have the common characteristics of drama genre. They are plot, characters, conflict, music and dialogue. The essential nature of drama is to present the action, conflict, crisis and resolution of a story through character or actors before a group comprising the audience in a public forum. And let us see the objectives of drama. To enable students to appreciate Shakespeare as a dramatist, to enable the learners to appreciate the craftsmanship of Shakespeare's verse, to make the students understand the themes and techniques of the Shakespearean plays, to enable the learner to gain an insight into the age of Shakespeare and to appreciate the moral and philosophical significance of Shakespeare's plays and their relevance to the modern days. Let us see the purpose of drama. To express the need for social change, to communicate a universal theme, to recreate and interpret information, ideas and emotions, to entertain and divert our attention from our everyday lives. Shakespeare's drama. Shakespeare is considered to be the ultimate playwright. He is the father of English drama because the template provided by his plays become one of the subsequent forms of drama. Shakespeare wrote 37 plays and through his plays he added 1700 words to the English language. For example, critic, dauntless, dwindle, elbow, green-eyed and luxter, lonely. These are all the words added to dictionary. The audience during the Elizabethan era encompasses poor, working class and wealthy citizens. The theatre during the Elizabethan era was so popular that it reached people from all walks of life, from royalty to the nobility and the commoners. The Elizabethan theatre, you can see it in the clipping, that audience attracted people from all classes, the upper class, nobility and the lower class commoners. Shakespeare has no heroes but only heroines. These are all the words by Ruskin. Shakespeare's heroines were given all the important pioneering roles. It is evident that all his writings are highly influenced by Queen Elizabeth. Shakespeare's aim is to honor the Queen by creating those iconic women characters. But Shakespeare's heroes, they are the representatives of human beings because human beings have flaws. The conventional and adventurous heroes, especially his tragic heroes, put the tragedy in tragedies. Here about tragic heroes by Aristotle. Aristotle says that Shakespeare's heroes must be a person of some stature or high position such as a king, general or nobleman. The hero must be a good person. He must matter to us and we must see him as a worthwhile person. Because of his position, his actions usually have far-reaching effects. The hero must possess a character trait or quality which under normal circumstances would be a virtue, but under the special circumstances of the play proves to be a fatal flaw. The hero usually makes further errors in judgment following his misdeed. Often he has a distorted perception of or is blind to reality. He suffers both outwardly and inwardly. He must elicit both pity and fear from the audience. Usually he recognizes his mistake in the end and he must die. Shakespeare's tragic heroes. In each of his tragedies, Shakespeare has his main character suffer from flaw in other core character. He gives each tragic hero a fatal flaw that ultimately results in their death. Shakespeare built each one of his tragic protagonists with a defect in their personality, a normal human emotion or characteristic taken to its extreme that directly leads to their downfall. Each tragic character has their own fatal flaw, and each fatal flaw shines a light on some of the darker characteristics of humanity. Here, Shakespeare's four most admired tragic heroes: Macbeth from the play Macbeth, and Marcus Brutus from Julius Caesar, and Prospero from The Tempest, and As You Like It, Orlando. Let us see the play Macbeth. Macbeth was written between 1599 and 1606. First, it was performed in 1606, the shortest of Shakespeare's tragedies without diversions or subplots. It records that Macbeth's seizing of power and succeeding destruction, both his rise and his fall, the result of blind ambition. The play begins with the brief appearance of a trio of witches and then moves to a military camp where the Scottish King Duncan hears the news that his generals Macbeth and Banquo have defeated two separate invading armies, one from Ireland led by the rebel MacDonald and one from Norway. Three witches, here you can see the witches, they tell Scottish General Macbeth that he will be the King of Scotland. Encouraged by his wife, Macbeth kills the king, becomes the new king and kills more people out of mistrust. Civil war erupts to overthrow Macbeth, resulting in more death. The three witches anticipate a meeting with Macbeth. King Duncan hears the report of how his generals Macbeth and Banquo defeated the Norwegians and the Scottish rebels. The witches gather on a heath and meet the generals returning from the war. They predict Macbeth will become Thane of Cawdor and one day king, and that Banquo will be the father of kings. Macbeth is then greatly impressed when he is greeted by Rose and Angus with the title of Cawdor. Now in Act 2, Duncan greets Macbeth with great prize and purpose to visit him. Macbeth writes to his wife telling her of what had happened and the king's plans. Lady Macbeth, seeing the opportunity, plots with her husband how they might kill Duncan when he arrives. After initial enthusiasm, Macbeth changes his mind, but Lady Macbeth persuades him to carry out the deed. He murders Duncan, making it seem that the servants were to blame, and describes the scene to his wife. Lady Macbeth finds herself having to return the daggers he has used to Duncan's bedroom, and her hands become covered with blood too. They retire when they hear repeated knocking at the castle gates. Macbeth becomes King of Scotland but is plagued by feelings of insecurity. He remembers the prophecy that Banquo's descendants will inherit the throne and arranges for Banquo and his son Fleance to be killed. In the darkness, Banquo is murdered, but his son escapes the assassins. At his state banquet that night, Macbeth sees the ghost of Banquo and worries the courtiers with his mad response. Lady Macbeth dismisses the court and unsuccessfully tries to calm her husband. It looks as if she wishes to accelerate Macbeth's downfall. Act 4 is about Macbeth seeks out the witches who say that he will be safe until a local wood, Birnam Wood, marches into battle against him. He was also told that he need not fear anyone born of women. They also prophesy that the Scottish succession will still come from Banquo's son. Macbeth embarks on a region of terror, slaughtering many, including Macduff's family. Macduff had gone to seek Malcolm at the court of the English king. Malcolm is young and unsure of himself, but Macduff, pained with grief, persuades him to lead an army against Macbeth. Act 5, Macbeth feels safe in his remote castle at Dunsinane until he is told that Birnam Wood is moving towards him. Malcolm's army is carrying branches from the forest as a camouflage for their assault on Macbeth's stronghold. Meanwhile, an overwrought and conscience-ridden Lady Macbeth walks in her sleep and tells her secrets to her doctor. She commits suicide. As the final battle commences, Macbeth hears of Lady Macbeth's suicide and mourns. Macbeth and Macduff come face to face on the battlefield, where they exchange words before clashing swords. Fearing no man born of women, Macbeth fights on, killing young Savard, but on meeting Macduff, he learns of Macduff's Caesarean birth. Macbeth refuses to yield, he is killed by Macduff, and Malcolm is proclaimed as king. Let us see the character of Macbeth. Macbeth is a very complex character. He has so many character traits. The most noticeable characteristics is that Macbeth is a very ambitious person. He is also a coward person and depends on others to make decisions. And one thing very important is that Macbeth is a incompatible person. The good and evil both exist in his character. Let us remember some quotes, important quotes from Macbeth. First one, fair is foul and foul is fair. These are the words by three witches in Act 2, Scene 2. Among the last lines in Scene 1 of Act 1, this famous quote is said by the witches and sets the tone of the play. It could be simple, interrupted as, what is fair or pretty will become foul or ugly, and vice versa. That is, things would be opposite to what they appear. It could be also interrupted as suggesting that Macbeth's world will become upside down and he will do things he considers foul or unfair, disregarding what appears fair to him. This line is the most important in Macbeth and can be considered closest to describing the theme of the play. And second one is, look like the innocent flower, but be the serpent under it, by Lady Macbeth in Act 1, Scene 5. This line is said by Lady Macbeth during a speech in which she is convincing her husband to pretend like a perfect host when King Duncan visits them, to hide their true purpose of murdering Duncan. Hence, she tells Macbeth to look like an innocent flower, but be like the serpent which hides underneath it. Next one, to know my deed, it were best now know myself, by Macbeth. This famous quote is spoken by Macbeth in the scene where he returns after killing Duncan in his sleep. Macbeth is stating this, it would be better if he was completely unaware of himself than to be conscious and think of the crime he had committed. He doubts whether he knows the man who committed the crime. The quote reflects that although Macbeth chooses to realize his ambition by unethical means, he is also aware of his wrongdoing. Next quote, will all great Neptune's ocean wash this blood? clean from my hand. Macbeth says this to himself after murdering Duncan. His guilt caused him to shake at every noise. His hands symbolize the murder. Neptune is an allusion to the Roman god of the sea, whose water could not wipe the blood, meaning guilt from Macbeth's hands. Let me conclude. The downfall of Macbeth is due to his greed for power, witches' self-fulfilling prophecies, and the pressure from Lady Macbeth. The greed for power was the tragic flaw that brought about the downfall of great Macbeth. Let me conclude the words of Shakespeare: all the world's a stage and all the men and women merely players. Let us meet in the next module. Thank you.